the chase and the hunt, and I set the pace when I'm running. I always...
Namaste friends. Today's lecture is slightly interesting. It is going to be, I'm going to be putting two videos in one lecture. The reason is, I'm not trying to increase my video count, but this is more or less like a recap, but it is still worth it. And the next video will be slightly longer. So I thought, we can combine these two things as one video. Okay. So what we are going to be seeing is about the dedicated host. So what is a dedicated host? We saw about the different types of EC2 and the different pricing models. So what did we see? On demand, okay, which is like whenever you need it, you pay. Okay, you actually ask for it. So what does it mean in normal terms? That is slightly expensive. Or how do I actually say this? You go to a restaurant and then you actually want to actually have a particular kind of food. So that is on demand, right? So you are demanding that food. So that in that case, that is going to be slightly expensive. It's a reserved. So reserved is basically what is actually happening is in the same restaurant. Now say suppose you're a regular customer and you keep on going there time and again, 3 or plus more years. Don't you think you will actually have some kind of discount? You will have discount. So that is exactly what is actually happening here. If you actually reserve the capacity for 1 to 3 years, you get 72% discount. Okay. Now what is a spot? The spot is some restaurants, what they do with some restaurants, okay, they say on this particular day, the food is you actually say I will only go when the food is 70% off, which can actually happen anytime. Okay, it can actually happen during Christmas, Diwali, the Indian Diwali, or any other big festival, or Ramzan or something, where the restaurant may say at this time, from this time to this time, the food is off by 70%, which actually comes to your requirement. But it is not necessary that you're going to get it because it's going to be a heavy line. So the spot is something like that, where you actually put this thing, you bid for a price. When the price comes, you get your this thing, but it is short-lived. Okay. So on demand, you pay per the hour or the second, depending upon the instances you run. Reserved is 1 to 3 years. Spot is usually unused capacity, but it can go up to 90% discount. It can actually fluctuate, and as I said, depending upon this. Now we come to dedicated. Now what is a dedicated? The physical EC2 server, which is only dedicated for use, and this is the most expensive option. Okay, a dedicated is something which is only for me. Now say suppose I have a big corporation or government or a school, something of that nature, where I need only my dedicated instance, where I would not like to share it with any person. Okay, so that is, imagine that you have your farm which is dedicated for you, and you only take the thing from there to cook your food. So that is your farm. Okay, so everything is dedicated for you. In that case, it is only for you. In that case, it is going to be slightly expensive, right? So that is what we are seeing here. Okay, so the dedicated is the most expensive option. So the dedicated also has a bunch of things. It has a compliance. It has a regulatory requirements that may not support a multi-tenant virtualization. Licensing, it is great for licensing that does not support multi-tenancy or cloud deployments. Can be purchased on demand. This is not necessarily dedicated, but general things, compliance and licensing. The reserved can be purchased up to 70%. So the 4 different things are the compliance, licensing. The licensing does not support multi-tenancy or cloud deployments. The regulatory requirements that may not support multi-tenant virtualization. Okay, so these are the things. It is not for dedicated instance, it is just in general. Now any question that talks about special requirements, okay, in Amazon EC2 dedicated host is a physical server, okay, with an EC2 instance fully dedicated to use. So when you need a special licensing requirements, by default, think that it is a dedicated host. Okay, very simple. When you need a special licensing requirements, by default, it is dedicated. Namaste friends. So as I said, like, this is like a two-part video, and the second part is about the spot instances. Even though the spot instances, we actually talked of the share price, like, how we actually bid for it, we've actually talked about it. I think it actually covers a good 5 minutes, so I just thought of making two videos in one, so that, like, I can also save you some time. So what are all the spot instances? As as we also discussed many a times, a spot instance basically saves you 90% of the on demand. Okay, this we've already seen it. So when are you going to be using the spot instance? In applications such as big data, the CI, the continuous input, continuous deployment, high performance computing, and areas where you want to test, these areas you can actually use a spot instance, because it is fault tolerant and it is for flexible applications. Okay, for flexible applications you need spot instance. Okay, remember that, flexible fault instance, spot instance, spot instance. First is, as I said, like, you have to determine the bid pricing, like, what is the maximum I can actually go for. And as long as once you actually say quote like $1, okay, or 1 rupee, if you are actually getting it till 90 paisa or 90 cents, then you're going to have a spot, otherwise no. Okay, the hourly spot price depends upon the capacity and region. Okay, so now say suppose the spot price goes to the above the maximum, that $1, 1 rupee or whatever it is, you have 2 minutes in order to choose whether you want to stop or terminate your instance. Okay, for this is for a spot instance. Now the same thing if you're actually using a spot block, to stop your spot instance from being terminated, even if the spot price goes over the maximum this thing, you can set your spot block. Okay, there's something called as a spot block, and using that you can actually use it for 1 to 6 hours. Okay, currently it is 1 to 6 hours spot block. Again, as I said, like, where the spot instance is used, big data, containerized workloads, will be seeing at CI/CD, image and media rendering, high performance computing, where you need a flexible application, the spot instance are a boon. Where you can't use it, because we have actually seen where to use it, but where you can't use it, definitely database, definitely a persistent workload, where it's like constant, persistent, this thing. Critical jobs, because a spot can terminate anytime, so critical jobs you can't. Critical, persistent, and database you can't use spot. The spot fleet is nothing but, what is a fleet of warship? Many warships, fleet of ships. The spot fleet is nothing but a collection of spot instance, and optionally, sometimes on-demand instance. The spot fleet actually attempts to launch a number of spot instance and the on-demand to meet a target capacity. Okay, you actually specify in the spot fleet request. So the request for the spot instance is fulfilled if there is available capacity. Like always we know, the spot fleet attempts to maintain its target capacity. So now say suppose you have a spot fleet, like 5 of, like a Starlink, like, you have 5 satellites, and you make sure, like, 3 of the satellites are always continuously working. So you have, like, either 2 on demand, 3 spot. You make sure, like, the spot fleet is always functioning irrespective of any fluctuations within the spot instance. So take this as an example. Okay, so that is a spot fleet, and that is where it is actually coming. A fleet is a bunch of a big warrior. Like, say suppose, like, a person of 10, you always have a person of 10, or in cricket you always have 11 players playing, and you have substitute, something like that, so that, like, when one person goes out, the other person comes on, the capacity is maintained. We can also take this as an example. So what is the thing is, we define, like always, define the EC2 size, the operating system availability zone. You can have multiple pools. The fleet will actually choose the best way to implement depending upon the strategy defined. The spot fleet, whilst stop launching an instance once you reach your price threshold or capacity desire. Once either or, okay, either if the capacity is actually reached or the price is actually reached, the spot fleet will actually cease there, it will actually stop. So we can have the following strategies with the spot fleet: capacity optimized, diversified, because it is not only one, diversified across the pools, lowest to prices, instance pool to use count. Okay, the parameters actually valid in some cases. All right, so you can actually have a look into it. These are all the various things that you can actually do with the spot fleet and see how cool it is. The spot instance saves up to 90%. It is not useful for a persistent storage, big data, media, these areas it is fine. Not with databases, persistent storage. You can block spot instance from terminating by using a spot block, and this is that 1 to 6 hours. You can block it. Okay. A spot fleet is a collection of spot instance and optionally on-demand instance, and this, when it reaches its price threshold or the capacity, it actually ceases to exist. Okay, so if you have any questions, you know where to actually contact me, and I'll actually try to help you to the best of my abilities. Till we see next time, take care, cheers, and thanks for your time.